Hello, it's Ben, and this is the DIY channel. Thanks for tuning in today. Today I'm going to be working in my carport. I need to put some more shelves up because I never seem to have enough space for everything. I'm going to show you how you can make a super duper sturdy strong shelf using something that wasn't meant to be a shelf, a stair tread. So if putting up shelves sounds interesting to you, stay tuned. Well, check out those two shelves. They are supporting a lot of weight and they're not bowing or flexing, especially that top shelf. It's got a bunch of liquids on it. And you can see these are 1 inch thick, not 3/4, not a half, but 1 inch thick. And they're 4 feet long. I've got this area, and below it, instead of having the chainsaws on the floor, I want to put my fan, my big fan, which means I'm going to put a shelf right here with chainsaws on it. And I have bought these two brackets, and the first thing I'm going to do is install these brackets. Well, I'm going to attach these shelf brackets right next to the trim of the window, and I'm sure there's some good wood behind there because there should be a couple of 2x4 framing members. And I'm going to make it so that the shelf is probably going to be the same level as the other shelf that's right next to it with the glasses hanging off of it. I thought I had some marks on the wall, but I couldn't seem to get that second mark to show up. And that's when I realized there was a sticker on the back of this. So I poked a hole through the sticker, and then I was able to mark the wall so I could drill my pilot holes. Now that I have some marks on the wall, I'll use my drill and drill a pilot hole for each screw. It's just something I've got in the habit of doing, and it's something that makes the fit and finish a little bit better in my mind. Well, I'll use my impact driver to attach this shelf bracket to the wall before I go to the other side and attach the second shelf bracket. There we go. I don't even think the weight of the chainsaw is going to pull this bracket off the wall. Well, I've got my 4-foot level out, and one end is on the other shelf bracket. And I'll slide this second one in and make sure that the level is level, and that should make sure the shelf is level before I put any marks on the wall and drill my pilot holes. After that, it's on to the impact driver and to set all those screws. So in an effort to maximize all my space, I wanted this shelf to be slightly recessed into the window cavity. So here I am taking several different measurements from the window and transferring it to the piece of wood, and I'll end up taking this to the miter saw and cut most of this off. I did the same thing on the other end of the board, marking it and then drawing squiggle lines on everything that I needed to remove. I really like my miter saw, but this model has one flaw. It doesn't have the ability to cut anything wider than 6 inches. So every time I need to cut something wider than 6 inches, I have to flip the board over and try to line it up. If I ever do replace this saw, I'm going to get one that cuts a lot more than just 6 inches. Now that I've got the excess material off the end of the shelf, I can start working on notching out all the pieces to help recess the shelf into the window. I started by using my circular saw to make a few cuts on each end of the board and remove some of the material. Then I moved on to using my jigsaw and finished cutting out the rest of the pieces. This jigsaw doesn't make the best cuts, but I'm going to end up using my sander and smooth out the cuts and smooth out the rest of the shelf. Well, if I got this right, it should just slip right in. And there still should be enough room for me to raise and lower the window. I'll mark the shelf so I know where to put my pilot holes for the screws. Well, it looks like I got the shelf marked and the cuts done well because it really looks good in the window frame. But now that the shelf's up, I think I'm going to rearrange these battery operated tool shelves. I might even add a few more shelves here while I'm at it. I went with a 1 inch by 12 inch piece of pine for the other shelf, and here I am putting some pilot holes in it. Well, this shelf is only 3/4 of an inch thick, but because the only thing I'm going to put on it are 2 RC cars, I don't think I'm going to have to worry about the wood sagging in the center, especially since the hangers are on each end. And the stair treads are the same way too. That 1-inch red oak stair tread isn't going to sag no matter how much weight you put on it. Now I'll put a couple coats of an oil-based gloss black paint on the shelves. Now I will say this as far as the price goes. The most expensive option is using this red oak stair tread, but it is going to last a long time and it's not going to warp or sag. But the other options would be that particle board with the vinyl film on it. You can get a 35-inch long piece for $13 or a 48-inch long piece for $14, as opposed to almost $50 for a 4-foot long stair tread. I also found something that was almost like a butcher block that was 48 inches long, 10 inches deep, and a true 1-inch thick. But it was $120. And I don't think you'd be doing that if you're just talking about putting up some shelves in a shop or carport. I'm trying to remember how long I installed the 2 oak shelves that are above the workbench. And I believe they've been there for about 3 years. And to have been outside in a humid environment, they haven't sagged one bit. And that top shelf has nothing but a bunch of liquids, oils, and hydraulic fluid and everything else on it. So even though the price is about twice or 3 times as much as a pine shelf, I really think it's worth the value and the fact that you're not going to have to worry about the shelf sagging, and that you can support it from the very ends with only 2 brackets instead of 3 or 4 shelf brackets. There were 3 chainsaws on the floor that I'm going to put on this shelf, and it's going to be nice not to have to worry about it. And I'll make sure I get both sides of these painted really well. Okay, we got 2 coats. And use some 1/2-inch long screws because this shelf is only 3/4 of an inch thick. I'll attach the shelf at both ends with screws and then load it up with some RC crawlers. Probably have enough room. I could probably put. It's going to be the same way for the chainsaw shelf too. I'll just put it in place and attach it with some screws. And I can still open up the window and let some fresh air in. So I'm going to recycle an old rug floor mat and put it on the shelf so that way when the chainsaws are sitting on it and they leak some oil, which all chainsaws seem to do, it'll get soaked into that rug and not drip down onto my workbench. So having said that, we've got a shelf, we've got some chainsaws out of the way, and there's room for my fan. Well, there you go. It looks like installing these 2 shelves is going to solve some problems. I've got my RC cars up higher, which means I have total access to the rigid Pro Gear system, and also means I have a place to put my big fan. Well, I wasn't sure how this shelf above this toolbox was going to work out, but it hasn't blocked any of the light coming in, and I still have a great view out of the carport. Well, if there's anything else you can think, leave me a comment. Otherwise, this project's done. So like, subscribe, and check out my playlist, and I'll see you in another video.